Morning. Here we are again, eh? So a little bit later, as you can see, it's about 10 to 6. Still doing pretty well on the 7-hour sleep regime. Hence that's why I'm getting up at now 5:25. But I've had quite a few things that I need to tidy up this morning. I need to go into work before anybody else gets in. As we've got a new starter, so I've just got a few things, but I'll touch on that a little bit later. So anyway, this is really recapping on the stuff that happened week commencing the 4th of Feb. So on Monday I had a blood test at the doctor's as part of the kind of just making sure that there's that I'm in relatively good condition really to cope with the upcoming high stress levels, is how I would see it in my own mind, of going through moving not only a house but also moving a business. So I just need to make sure that blood pressure's all right, and that there's no imminent signs of high cholesterols and all the rest of it. So I had a blood test on Monday, which is good, and Monday was a key day for us. We were supposed to be having the valuation, or the surveyor or valuer was going around to the property that we're looking to buy, just to literally just really to make sure that if the property had to be sold, that the bank or the financial institution that's lending us the cash would be able to recoup, would be able to get the money back on their deal, which can't see any reason why they wouldn't. But typically, or for whatever reason, the valuer went round, and through some kind of miscommunication, when he went to try and get entry to the property via the cleaner being there, somehow or other they managed to set the alarm off. I don't know how you would do that, and the valuation then literally they couldn't go through with it, so that's had to be rescheduled, and that's going to happen Tuesday this week. Also on Monday we discovered that the mortgage offer has been kind of like put in writing, subject to the valuer's, subject to the valuer's report coming through and saying that the property's worth what it's down for against the money that we're borrowing. So that's good. Or I should say that's very good really. But it also makes it a heck of a lot more real from my perspective. So it's going from more of, well, here's something that may happen, more to here's something that will happen. So that really does begin to ramp up the pressure. Monday was also the day that Elliot and I went to do some installations of some signage at Birch Services, the WH Smith. Something that it's something that we had to do because we had other people out there doing installs. I think they were still installing the toilet frame job, so it needed to be done on time. So the only logical people left was myself and Elliot. So we went there, and I always get really nervous when it comes to any kind of DIY or installation job, and kind of rightly so. We took off, there was some Foamex panels, which are kind of is like a plastic, a 3mm plastic that goes above this chiller run, and we took them off to replace them, and then when we offered up the new panels they were too big, and when we looked at it, the whole chiller one was completely just totally wonky. So basically it went down at the roof on one end and kind of like up above the chillers on the other, and it's kind of, well, it was a completely different size all the way along. If it was probably up to me, I probably would have had a go at trimming all the panels, because ultimately what was up there was trimmed. But Elliot was like, nope, let's not do that. Let's let's get some 3D letters cut. So I mean this was done, I think this was done during the afternoon. Did we do this? Or was it during the evening? I think it must have been done during the morning, because I remember now actually how you actually rang through to get some more letters cut. So yeah, effectively what we had to do was almost like abandon the install, just do some parts of it, and then come back to then we had to come back to revisit it on the Wednesday of that week. Also, in the evening, Liverpool played West Ham, and this was kind of like a big, quite a big game. Liverpool are currently top of the league, which is a football team that I follow, and they got a draw against West Ham away, which it feels like every game you've got to win, because they're running in to the title between Tottenham, Man City and Liverpool. Liverpool currently top, Man City is second, and Tottenham are a close third. So it really is, we've got about at that point I think there's probably 13 games to go. So yeah, literally it feels like every point counts. So even a draw feels like a defeat in some ways. So that's well, yeah, it's something it's a good distraction as much as anything else, and it's also a good source of banter within the office, because there are quite a lot of Man United supporters, and that obviously for them the idea of Liverpool actually winning a title for the first time in whatever 29 or 30 years is certainly not something that they would look forward to. Then again, I wouldn't have thought Man City winning the title would be that good, although I would have thought they're probably pretty used to that. Anyway, Tuesday the 5th, we actually had the mortgage offer confirmed in writing. So I think in previous, on the last time we tried to do anything along these lines, I'd said that until I actually physically saw the signed offer in writing, as in the final thing, that I wouldn't believe in it. It's kind of like a little bit the same with this one, in that we have, even though now we have this mortgage offer in writing, I have seen these things before. So literally until the value's been round and then I see the thing in writing, that's really when I'm probably going to feel more relaxed in some ways that we've got an offer, and stressed in others, because it means that it's like totally just basically totally nailed on them. So Tuesday we had to do a staff review. So that's with Emily. Emily's been here with us now at 24/7 for 3 years, although I've got to admit it really does feel longer. You say 3 years, and in some perspectives it just feels like no time. In other perspectives it feels like you've been here forever. I think the strange thing is, when the right people join the business and they're in there, they can be there as little as like 1 or 2 weeks, and if they fit in really well, it just feels like they've been there forever, and that's always like a good sign. Emily's been really good for us. I mean, she's helped. I think everybody in the company has to have some kinds of versatility and multi-skilled, and Emily's helped us out on more than one occasion, typically when either parts of the business have have increased, or maybe people have left, and then Emily's always seems to be the one who has been able to step into the breach and literally help us through when we've been at a point in time where we've just literally needed a safe and experienced pair of hands. Although this review it's been slightly more interesting in that we're looking at kind of redefining her role to formalise and to really define a role of one that really looks after the health and safety side of the business, which is like massively important, making sure all things like risk assessments are done and that people are trained properly. And yeah, it's just good to know that you've got somebody with that kind of experience and, you know, who's good at doing the reading and also the understanding of it. Part of that is going to include sending Emily on a course. I think the course is actually being done at ours, to give us some more like official qualifications. So it's nice to be able to it's just nice to be able to, you know, move people along a career path. And then I think maybe Emily might have been a bit sceptical at first, but I think she's definitely come round to the idea, because it is a defined role rather than kind of like, oh, look after this account or look after that account, which is more kind of well, it's just less defined. So I suppose it's going to makes her, I suppose, a more valuable employee within the company. I mean, not that anybody's not valued at all, but I suppose people who have specialisms and there's that kind of irreplaceable thing, probably something to consider. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it goes all right, and, you know, hopefully the job role, which, God, for me, one that's so bound over like getting paperwork in on specific dates and what have you, it's definitely not something that I would look forward to doing. But I guess that's why, you know, you employ people so that they can do the jobs that maybe you're, you know, just because you can do it doesn't mean to say you should do it. So I'm just looking at what else. Yeah. Yeah, but also on Tuesday we also had like a little mini meeting where it's quite funny. We're not a very hierarchical company as such, and by that I mean I don't like wield any kind of big sticks. I like everybody to, you know, to get things done. It's more that we're working together, because that's genuinely how it is. There are times though when sometimes you need to support people in terms of their own position within the company. So Bev, who works for us, as a company manager, and you're asking Bev to do things that are kind of like proxy instead of yourselves in terms of being the MD or the running of the company. There are some powers or responsibilities, whatever you want to call it, that have to be passed on to, you know, a company manager to do. But then it's just making sure that people have the respect and know that, you know, that is Bev's job, and that if Bev says something, then that's basically, you know, the way it is. So we've had to you can call it reinforce our position, or just underline the fact that that is her role, and that if we trust her to do that job, which we do, then, you know, her decision for certain matters, I think it's over issuing of something really looks kind of like trivial, seemed trivial to me, about signing off holidays, but you know, those are the kind of things that, you know, can mean, you know, these things that seem trivial to me and unimportant can actually mean a lot of things to other people. So yeah, it was good because we managed to resolve it without it being a big all sit down and kind of like let's all discuss it kind of thing, which is not, you know, I don't like to really have things in a too formal setting. I'd rather have kind of like one-to-one chats with people just to you know, put them back on the right path. So that was that was pretty good. Wednesday saw us getting the confirmation for the next valuation of the property that we're looking to get, which is set for Tuesday this week coming. Wednesday was also the day I spent a lot of time on We Deliver, which is our kind of like courier side of the business. So I looked at the kind of like all the figures that have been done for the first 3 months of the year. So it started 1st of October. So I looked at the trading from 1st of October to end of December. Bearing in mind that obviously the end of December's pretty quiet, and like the last 2 weeks of December, pretty much we don't work anyway. So I took those figures and then kind of extrapolated them across the year just to see, if the business and the profitability of the business was then kind of like projected over a 12-month period. What did those figures look like? Bearing in mind that what we've done is we've taken a one-person business, which was John, and then increased that to 2 across the, pretty much across the same level of, a similar level of business. And kind of like the reassuring conclusion for me is that it did, the numbers did kind of add up, which is important because we've kind of lent money across the 2 companies, or Solutions has lent We Deliver money to try and help give them the cash flow that they need, in terms of making sure that we're able to pay the bills even when people haven't even paid us. So for instance, we had some companies that hadn't paid us even a penny or anything like that, hadn't paid anything since we started in October, despite them having statements and despite them being chased. They still haven't paid us, and these are bills that are quite sizable bills in my opinion, and certainly not the kind of bill that I would leave sitting on our debtor book unpaid. But anyway, we're kind of closing the net on those and chipping them in. But kind of the main conclusion is obviously, for the business to do well, we have capacity within the business in terms of, Sherry's maybe sat down in the morning, she's not really doing that many deliveries, and there is a lot of scope to grow that side of the business. And that kind of like moves on to the theory of like, how do you grow the business, for We Deliver. So we're looking at this in terms of 3 strands, I suppose you could say. So you've got Sherry and John are going out and they're visiting we've got 2 big business parks. We've got Winsford 1 to 5, which is near us, and also Gadbrook Park. And then we just so happens that we've actually got a list of the businesses on there. So we're literally going around doing a traditional old-fashioned kind of knock on doors, give them a flyer, give them a Doug the Bug, which is this little kind of like fairy logo bug with our name on it. So that appears to be quite fruitful. I think we've actually had, last week we had our first booking or shipment, whatever you want to call it, from one of the companies on Winsford 1 to 5. So all the Winsford 1 to 5 I think have now been pretty much visited, so that then leaves all of Gadbrook Park, which I think is down to this week to be visited. I mean, all these things would have been done quicker, but John's been helping us with doing the toilet frame installations for Moto, so he's literally been all around the country helping with the fitting, and then even after that we had to then go back and then revisit a lot of sites and move the poster frames down, because on the back of the door in the toilet you've got a frame that's at one height that's run by Abmedia, and that's somebody who has to change the posters regularly, and then we were told to put the posters pretty much directly underneath them, and then it turns out that these poster frames from Abmedia have like a little Allen key fitting that needs to be unlocked to allow the posters to be changed. And of course, because we put the poster frames pretty much directly below them, it means that now we've got to go back round and then rip them off and reposition them. So we've had that to do. The other way that we've been looking to get more revenue for WeDeliver is by using the Google pay per click. So I think it's actually, we've got a very narrow defined click. We're certainly not going for pay per click. Is kind of like the blue words that you, whatever you want to call them, blue words, the search words that you're putting to Google, and the top 3, I think it is at the moment, that's how it is. Those are kind of like paid advert results, so you literally have to bid for the letters, for the words that it picks up. So I think we've gone for local, and I think we've picked up local towns where we're already doing kind of like collections. So we collected Knutsford, Altrincham, Winsford, that kind of like our local district. So we bid for that, but I think we maybe spend about a tenner a week in terms of clicks, because you only, although your ad, the ad might get seen, you only actually get charged for anybody who clicks that ad, and then it takes you through to the website. So we've got that. So we've got the direct sales where John's going in, and kind of you can call kind of trying to expand his existing clients just by asking them for kind of more work. That's the other kind of like that face-to-face thing. Then we've got the Google pay-per-click, and then also now we're moving on to the other bit, which is kind of like the paid social advertising, which is the social media marketing agency kind of model. And so that's where we're testing on that. I actually on that Wednesday morning I reread those notes that I'd made in terms of advertising via social. So the conclusion was that I'd literally shoot effectively what's like an advert, but an advert that we're going to run what they call it contextually. So at the top end of the advert, it says something like I think it says word for word, are you looking for somebody you can pick up locally within Northwich? So in your Facebook feed, that's the first thing that you see, and then after that it goes into an ad. So I took the van to get it washed, borrowed the uniform, the polo shirt off Sherry, because she's I can fit into that polo shirt, and then I also got a black cap just to finish off the look. And then Josh and I went to a car park in a quiet area, a nice leafy area of Kingsmead, which is a local village to us. And then we delivered the lines, and got to be honest, it was a lot harder than what I thought. So I think I maybe had a very, well, let's put it this way, it was probably about 3 or 4 sentences to deliver, and I don't know, it must have took me about 12 attempts to do it. But anyway, if at first you don't succeed, that's the great thing. It's not like this. If something goes completely horribly wrong, then I'd probably have to stop it and ask for help for somebody to cut the video. In fact, like it did when the video ran out on, I think it was my first video, and then I had to get Josh to glue the two halves together. Whereas on this one, obviously, you can do an unlimited amount of takes. As many takes as Josh could kind of like put up with me doing. So we did that, shot that. I guess the theory is, obviously my mentor, or the person who kind of like inspires me to do all this, is obviously the Gary V, and he would say, even if the advert is a 5 out of 10 in terms of its effectiveness, or in terms of it being done, then 5 out of 10 is better than the none out of 10 that we're doing at the moment. And also kind of like the good thing is it's giving a test for us to see how it goes, how long it takes for us to set up the ad campaigns that are going to be going out over social as well. So Thursday, Thursday was, I actually ended up again because I think we already had 2 teams being done. I had a meeting down at Moto head office at Toddington, and they needed some installations doing as well, so I decided to do the brave thing and do the install and also have the meeting with the client. So I was up at 5:30, which obviously gave me a 7 hours sleep, and was on the road for 6. And I went down to Toddington. Traffic was terrible. I'd cut across. I just literally I hadn't even put into the sat-nav the full journey to Toddington, but I went across to Hooton Park thinking that it would be quicker, because I'm pretty much sick of going down the M6 all the time. It always seems to be blocked with all the 50-mile-an-hour zones on it, just completely do my head in. Problem was, when I got across to the M1, close to it, there was like accidents on it, so I was like, oh no. And Google Maps, which is an app on my phone, that literally took me, or kept rerouting me all the way kind of like down parallel to the M1, going south, but through like all kinds of villages, like really, really obscure roads. But the funny thing was, obviously, I think the car in front, which was a really nice, it was a red Jaguar, one of the sports cars, like I don't know, it could be an XKR or something like that. He was also doing exactly the same route as me, so he must have been following. On Google Maps navigating us through. So anyway, I got set off at 6 and arrived there at 10, so that was a 4-hour journey for what in theory, if you had a clear run, you're supposed to be able to do it in 2.5 hours, although I think that's really optimistic. So one way or another, it probably took me about an hour longer than it should have done, but I was alright. Literally went in there, signed in. I would say felt like a disguise, but I went in kind of like looking, relatively smart for one, for the client meeting. Sat down, we had a discussion about some new potential. Well, there's not so much new potential work, but looking at a new kind of counter style for Moto. So I took the brief on that, and then went back to my car and got changed, got my high vis on, all the rest of it, and signed in, and then installed an external banner, which is a really big banner. It's 4 foot by 12 foot, or you could call it 1.2 meters by 3.6, so it's absolutely massive, and it was howling a gale out there, so I had to secure that into a banner frame, which seemed to take forever, but I'd rather take my time and get it right. And then internally, I had to put up a banner frame, but it turned out being on a tiled wall, so I'd come prepared for it being on just like a normal plasterboard wall. So I was like, fortunately, in my bag of tricks, I also had some high grab tape, so I was able to put that on the edge of the frame and literally secure it to the wall. So it still took quite a bit of time. Again, it just for me, it's got to be kind of like right. You've got to look, is it straight? Is it in the middle? that was done. The same thing on the Thursday. On the Thursday, Robert, who works for us on an ad hoc basis, he actually started work on the externals of our house, because obviously if we want to sell it, then we have to look for curb appeal, and there's always a kind of like a what do you, with a life in demand like I have, you have it's like, what you can't do every single thing, so what do you do? So and by that I mean like at the weekend, if I've got a choice of like working and catching up with work, or spending time with my family, or doing whatever, that always would take a priority, or it has done in the past, over all but the most essential DIY jobs. So that means that kind of the house is, although it's 11 years old, I think it is 11, about 11 or 12 years old, coming up to 12 years. It's not really been looked after, so kind of like, the past, the edges of the paths haven't been done, and driveways, covered in moss and that kind of thing. So Robert's helping me, I suppose you could say, like do the preparations for selling the house. If we want to maximise what we get for it, then it's got to look, as nice and as tidy as possible. And that really, Robert, there doesn't seem to be anything that Robert can't do in terms of these kind of hands-on kind of jobs, and he seems to love it. So he came down with his, I think I've got a pressure washer in the garage, and was like, oh yeah, you can use this. And I think he said no, I think he said something like, I've got my own pressure washer, that one that you've got looks like a toy. And I think he's right. I'll tend to buy, if I'm being honest, tools for myself, just the cheapest thing that will do the job. But I've got a feeling the one that Robert uses is about, I think the one I bought is maybe about 50 quid. I think Robert's is probably about £1,000 or something like that. It's almost like a professional pressure washer. So that's handy. So he's been doing that, and I have to say, I think even on the Thursday when I drove back and it was dark, was it getting dark by the time I got back? What time did I get back now? Actually, I think I got back at a relatively handy time. It must have been about 6 o'clock or something like that, which is good for me. And but even then I could see outside that the things like the I don't know what you call them, kind of like lintels, that's what it's called, lintels under it even cleaned all those off, and they were just covered just with general dirt. They were just dirt that you would just get by, just like your windows need cleaning. Well, Robert's now cleaned those as well, so yeah, he's doing an absolutely amazing job. But there's a hell of a lot more work to do, I'm afraid. Something I forgot to mention as well on Tuesday, this is going back, I'd also gone on Elliot and I had to go back and fit birch and put on the cut letters and paint the bulkhead and stuff like that. So we did that, and we had a little bit of a bet. I think we aimed to set off about 4:30, but I was messing around trying to look for this, that and the other, and I don't think we left till 5 o'clock. And I said, well, I'll definitely be back in time to watch my Netflix show at 9 o'clock, which is Luther. And Gwen was like, no, I bet you won't, you'll be later than that. And I was like, no, I'll definitely be back then. Felt really confident, felt like it was only going to maybe take like about an hour and a half or something like that to fit all the stuff. And unfortunately I kind of lost my bet, and I don't think we didn't get back till about 10:30. Something that I always enjoy when I go anywhere with Elliot, we've got a meeting or something like that, we tend to play Guess Who in the car, which is kind of like where you imagine you are, I don't know, a thing or a person or whatever, or a cartoon character or a film character, and then the other person has to guess who you are. And so we played quite a few games with that, and I recorded a couple while I was in the car and uploaded those, because they're just fun. I mean, he picks. I think, what was the one that he didn't get? It took forever. I mean, I picked Julius Caesar for one, thinking that was like a very famous person, obviously, a long time ago, of course. But I mean, he started off with a really easy one for me, Tom Cruise, and I mean, did I struggle to get that? I mean, I really struggled, and it's just nutty how even what seems to be some of the most easiest, nuttiest ones can take you forever. So we did another one which wasn't recorded, which was the Tin Man out of Wizard, ended up being the Tin Man out of Wizard of Oz, and it even got to the point where Elliot knew that the second name of the character was Man, so of course it could be things like Iron Man and all Superman and all the rest of it, but he also knew that it was I think it was a metal, so he was coming out with all kind of things like Magnesium Man and Aluminium Man. Anyway, we got there in the end, and yeah, it was a good laugh. It didn't even, I think we got back at 10:30, but to be fair, it didn't even really feel like work so much. I mean, we had, to be fair, we actually did have to do quite a bit. We had to strip off, fill in sand and paint bulkheads and apply letters and, disguise a big hole that was. So yeah, I mean, the main thing is that the installation went right. I mean, God, if you were probably looking at the time that we've spent on it, obviously it kind of on paper, the job probably doesn't come out that well now, because obviously we do 2 visits, but that's kind of like the risk that you do when you're doing that kind of installation work. And again, that's kind of changed our business model, whereas before, those kind of revisits, if they're being done by a third party company, then obviously you're not really affected by that. You have an agreed price, so if they have to go back and it's a mistake of their making, then obviously that doesn't hurt you at all, but it hurts their their profitability of the job. Whereas obviously now we have that now to bear ourselves, so if something does go wrong in a job, then obviously we do have to suck it up and go back, and unfortunately that just goes with the territory. So anyway, going back, Friday, so yeah, I was back in the office all day Friday, which is pretty weird. Felt like pretty weird. It's the first Friday in about 3 weeks that I think I've been in there. I think Kat was back in on the Friday after she'd been ill. She was still pretty poorly though. I had a really heavy cough. Jess was ill as well, so I'm just hoping that's not like kind of like the lurgy and like illness going round and just making everybody ill again. But again, it goes with the territory. I mean, I think people sometimes think that they've picked it up from work, but equally it could be any door handle that they touch at home, or when they go to anywhere else they could touch something that's got the germs on it. So it's like where does it come from? Obviously odds are on that it probably would be work, so let's just hope that Kat's illness doesn't end up taking us all out. So fingers crossed that she feels better this week, and hopefully Jess will feel better as well. Friday was again a bit of a weird day in terms of we had a query on our public liability insurance to do with like the filming, and we're doing another some more filming at a building that's derelict at Lister Mills in Bradford, and it's going to involve either a drone or some kind of automated vehicle going in and doing the filming within there, and then we just have to have the insurance to cover for it. So we had to have that done. Our underwriters had to, either make an exception or put in writing that we were covered for this. And obviously it's like the weird thing is that the person who's actually doing this particular job doesn't work for us. So that kind of adds a little bit of a complication as in terms of, well, why is he not covered under his insurance? Well, he was, but for some reason or other, our client wants him to be covered under our insurance as well. So ultimately, whatever the customer wants, if that's what if that's what they want, then that's what we'll do. Yeah, that was sorted out by the afternoon. It was a little bit. Well, are we going to have this or are we going to not get it? But it came through in the end, and it also highlighted that we put in a meeting for Tuesday of this week coming with the insurance guys, just to make sure that the wide variety of things that we do are covered, because we don't just do one particular thing, we do lots of things. And obviously, although we do have substantial amounts of insurance now, when my phone's ringing, and we've got employers liability and kind of like public liability, and I've got professional indemnities and those kind of things. We just need to obviously make sure that everything that we think is covered, because I'm sure if it comes down to it, if there's a way that an insurance company could wriggle out and find a way to not pay out should there be a claim, then they would. So we've got that to look forward to on Tuesday. Well, Robert and Aidan on the Friday, they went down to do a fit at Cheveley WH Smiths, and then came back through Toddington, where they were removing and repositioning some of these toilet frames. In fact, they were swapping them out from an A2 frame, which is quite a big frame, to one that was half the size. But they literally had a nightmare, and I think they'd set off at 6 in the morning. They didn't get back till 20 to 9. I think because the frames were so big, being A2, and they had VHB tape like down the long edges, they were really difficult to get off. I mean, really difficult. So yeah, normally the frames are quite easy with them being smaller, and they were half the size and just had VHB tape top and bottom, so they come off. They stuck on. Some of them are difficult to get off, but the majority come off quite easy, whereas these ones were really, really difficult. So yeah, they had a bit of a nightmare. So on the Friday night, I saw the Friday. I saw the first cut of the advert that I'd done on a Wednesday, and they do such a good job. I mean, I was like, oh, what are they going to be able to do from this footage that we've shot? But I have to say, it looks really good. So this week we're going to have to, we'll be literally doing the bit, we'll be setting the ad campaigns up and seeing how they run and seeing how they convert. We've also got to do some changes to the website so that there's some kind of track in terms of Facebook can see where the people have filled in your form, and then whether they've kind of like gone on the page and then gone off. It's kind of like a tracking thing for remarketing on that. So we've got to do the final changes for that. Weekend, on the Saturday and the Sunday, from February all the way up to November, it's karting. So on those 2 days, literally I do no work whatsoever. And I take my son Brody, he's my youngest son, he's 11, and we go to a racetrack, an outdoor karting racetrack called Hooton Park, which is near Ellesmere Port. So it's just really, really hard work for me, in terms of it's just cold. I'm just not designed or not built for going out in the cold. Some people, I think a northern term for this would be your nesh or something like that, and yeah, I mean literally I had skins, I think they're called, so merino wool skins, so that's like a thin like woolen top and almost like long johns, and then I also had jeans on, and then I had a shirt on and a hoodie, and then a parka. So somebody noted that I look like there's a guy called Kenny off South Park, I think it is, because literally I have my parka up and then all the way up, so there's just like literally like a tunnel like that, and I just like look out, try and protect myself from the cold wind. So Saturday was a practice day, where you kind of, you know, get the feeling for, allegedly supposed to get the feeling for going round the track. I think this is more for other people who've not actually been round the actual physical track themselves. And you know, obviously we just go, well, in theory you could go, I think, round the country. I think you can go into all these race meetings, but we just go to the same one. So it was a dry day on that particular day, and you know, I have to do the things like change the wheels. I was supposed to be already paying for a mechanic. I thought we were supposed to be paying for it, but we didn't really seem to get any mechanic in helping, so I found myself like changing the wheels. And you know, to be honest, I haven't got a clue what I'm doing. Sunday it felt a little bit more like that. You have to get there earlier on the Sunday to kind of like get the drivers signed in and stuff like that. And it was bad because I was coming down the M56, and then the M56 was shut. So I put on my Google Maps to try and find a navigation, and even Google Maps wouldn't come up with any suggestions whatsoever. So it's like, what are you supposed to do? So I literally had to guess which way I was going. Unfortunately, at the next junction, got back onto the M56, was able to get there a little bit late, which then put us under more pressure. So I was then running round and trying to get Brody to the point where he goes to, they call it scrutineering. It's where they look at the cart and then they weigh the cart as well. And weigh the cart, and so for some reason or other, the cart was like half a kilo underweight, and I think my conclusion was that it was because Brody, when he'd previously been weighed, I think there was maybe a little bit more fuel in the cart or something like that, and I think he must have had his wet weather suit on. And at the time, on the Sunday when it was raining, he didn't have the wet weather suit on at all. So I then had to then wheel the cart back and then buy some more lead, and it's just, you go to this cart and you're thinking, okay, anybody who's thinking of karting, all I can just say is just be aware that it's a complete money pit, because you're always buying something. So like on Sunday I ended up buying a kilo's worth of lead weight, a spark plug because one of the spark plugs like got oiled up, a new sprocket, which is kind of like the thing that your chain goes on, a new chain, some chain lubricant. Brody had cold hands, so I ended up buying him some neoprene gloves. So it's just, well, it's definitely, it's not a kind of hobby that I'd suggest for anybody who's financially faint of heart like myself, because it's just like, oh my God, every time you seem to go anything, it's like, right, need to buy one of these, need to buy one of them. The actual race day was, it was tough for Brady, I think. Did he go off on like the first you go through heats to decide where you're going to end up going in the actual races, and he didn't do so well on the heats, but you know, in the races, fair play to him. Certainly on the last, I think something like the second race, unfortunately his plug got oiled up and then it won't spark, so literally he only actually did maybe I don't know, he did something like about 8 laps instead of the 10, so he was like 2 laps behind the leaders. So that was a bit sad, because I think he came then last, and then that means then you have to start like in last place. But anyway, the bottom line, you finish, it goes off the very, very last race in terms of you have like heats, and then you have a final race, and on the final race it really was pretty exciting, and he finished 7th out of 11. But considering I think he started last or nearly last or something like that, I was actually really quite pleased. And he had a really good battle with the other car in front, where it's kind of like the next to last lap he got up to 6th, but then he ended up getting overtaken again. And I think he actually did lap somebody. So that proves that there are signs of improvement. And yeah, much as I've got to admit, like literally I dread these weekends, these karting weekends, because I get absolutely zero done. They always physically tire me out, because I'm having to like lift the car on here and, you know, like do mechanicking there, and it's just really, really, really hard work. And I think probably being out in the fresh air as well kind of like makes me more tired as well. The feeling of when it's over, it's just like, oh god, the feeling of relief is quite something else. And you know, without a doubt, you know, Brody, you know, does appreciate it. So he came and gave me a you know, like a hug later on when we got home, and said, oh, like, thanks for taking me and what have you. So yeah, you know, something, you know, what am I going to do when I look back in life? I'm going to look back at the times I spent with Brody karting. You know, which one am I going to be? Which one would I regret more? It would definitely be not taking Brody karting, I think. So yeah, just got to be done. Also, the other good thing I forgot to mention, on Friday I actually got my blood test, the results of my blood test back. So everything was fine on there, all kind of things like liver function and all the rest. It was fine. And they did say that what did they say now? Cholesterol is stable. So I was like, okay, well, stable, what does that mean? And I don't know, it's kind of like a bit higher than it should be, and the good thing is it's gone down. So I think it was 5.4 and now it's down to 5.3, and I think they like it to be about 4.5. So I don't know. So yeah, I think this week coming up, you know, it's going to be more. The week ahead, obviously, we've got the valuation on Tuesday. Oh god, yeah, I forgot on this week. Wow, a lot of things coming up. So valuation, well, today on Monday we've got a new starter, so I need to go into work and actually prep his PC. I've got a health check. We've got a health check for the mortgage. Tuesday, I think I'm working from home again, because Robert is starting to do the DIY on the internals of the house. So like Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday I'm supposed to be up doing an installation with Aidan in Southwaite, although I really am going to try and see whether I can get somebody else to do it. And then Thursday and Friday we're away for Valentine's Day, so it's going to be, you know, a short but hectic week. So yeah, yeah, onwards and upwards, as they say. Thanks for listening again, and see you next week.